Hoyne, welcome to you.
Kane, great to have you back. Hope you enjoyed your morning breakfast radio slot last week. You feel a bit fresh this week after a couple of days of sleep-ins, do you? Or?
Sleep-ins today, sorry. No, I actually prefer, I like getting up in the mornings. I'm a morning person.
Yep.
So to get it done then was good, but I don't know if I could do it all year because it does wear thin, those early morning wake-ups. But I did notice your stuff was...
All to do with the contract.
Was awesome as always, Hoyne. But where do you want to start today? You want to speak about the real ladder. What do you mean by this?
Yeah, well, obviously there's the ladder that everyone sees wherever you go. Sydney 1, Brisbane 2, whatever they are. Carlton 3, I actually couldn't really tell you what the actual ladder is.
You don't acknowledge it?
At the moment, well, let's just see how it all figures it out. More how you play G and Kane. That will take care of the results as we keep talking about on this show at length. So the real ladder.
Okay.
And people keep believe that I keep saying this forever and a day, but I'll back history until history changes. The number one go-to that we constantly refer to is how is your turnover game and where is that actually poised.
Okay.
So the points differential from turnover is the real ladder. Why is it the real ladder? 17 of the last 18 premiers have been top 3. Not top 6, not top 8, top 3 in the turnover game.
And here's 60% of scores from turnover, or
correct.
70% of scores from turnover?
60% of scores. So let's just have a look at where this
the real
ladder is actually poised at the moment. And I think this is going to tell a really interesting story in terms of where the competition's at. So Sydney are number 1.
Hang on a sec, the digital boys are just getting their computers out, ready to roll. Okay, let's go.
So Sydney are number 1. They're plus 280 points. Keep the points in your head.
280 points.
So plus 280 points. Carlton are right smack bang behind them at plus 276. 4 points the differential there.
Yep.
Brisbane round out the top 3 at plus 201.
Yep. Coach would be happy with that.
Just outside of that is Fremantle. They're coming hard. They're plus 181, so they're only 20 points away from getting into that absolute elite bracket that 17 of the last 18 premiers have been. And then there's a significant gap to Geelong, who are 5th at plus 112. So that's a massive gap on the competition from where the top 4 are at to the next place team.
Yep.
But I just want to take you back to where the real ladder was 2 months ago. This is where the story is.
Okay.
So 2 months ago, Sydney were plus 261 points.
Plus 261.
They were double the next best team in the comp, who are Carlton at who are Geelong at plus 132. That gap between Sydney and the next best has gone from double to they're hanging on to a slender lead at number 1 in the competition in the most important aspect of the game. Fremantle weren't even in consideration at round 11 2 months ago. Now they're just outside that bracket of the top 3. Brisbane were a mile back at plus 82. They were still going okay, but a long way back from actually getting into that grouping. So,
what was Carlton back then? I'm just writing this down for posterity.
So Carlton were plus 101.
Plus 101.
So they were 4th.
And what was Freo?
Freo, I haven't even got Freo because they were that far outside of where they actually were.
Didn't register.
No, so I didn't even. So I haven't even bothered. So when you look at the last 2 months. Carlton, so a lot of people, and we've done on this show as well, we've talked at length about what's happening with Carlton, what's happening with them defensively and whatever. I think it's all crystal clear to everyone in the industry and to, when assessing Carlton at the moment, it's got nothing to do what's happening with their turnover game. They are plus 175 on the competition, miles ahead of anyone else in the comp over the last 2 weeks. One of the best teams in the comp at scoring from it, and clearly the hardest team in the competition to score against from it. So whilst we're all looking for things with Carlton at the moment, are we concerned? Maybe there's a little bit of a bit of an interest in terms of personnel at the moment with the Blues. Where do they put this magnet here? Who's their second key defender? Now De Koning out. That's all legitimate talk. But in terms of what's happening from a system perspective, the Blues are in interesting shape. Sydney, for 2 months now, not just 2 weeks, for 2 months, are only slightly in the positive in the most important aspect of the game.
So your concerns over Sydney, I don't know when it was, maybe 10 weeks ago, Hoyne, or maybe a fraction less, 8 weeks ago, was can they keep this up? Have they peaked too early? To paraphrase what you said, and what you're saying is now that was probably pretty accurate. They haven't been able to keep it up.
Yeah, and I think it was unrealistic that they were going to perform at such a level for a 24-week home and away campaign, then a 4-week final series as well. And again, I'll back history until history changes. And I think Sydney are clearly going to be thereabouts. But the reality was, and this is why I mentioned it at the time, Kane, is that you're a sitting duck. At round 11, when your profile is like genuinely perfection, you're a sitting duck for 3 months, 4 months. And it doesn't take much for the competition to work out what you're doing and just little pieces. And I'll get into a few little things that are happening against Sydney at the moment.
Before you do that, can you just, for a couple of texts have just come through, can you just very briefly define turnover?
Turnover, so that's when you win the ball back off the opposition and your ability to be able to score off that. Or when you cough the ball up to the opposition, how well you are actually at defending that opposition possession.
If you win a first possession, you've got first possession, you fumble the ball and the opposition take it away. Is that off turnover or is that a clearance?
Nah,
first
still
possession loss.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still waiting for the ball to literally leave that stoppage situation.
You have to have handballed it or kicked it, essentially.
Yeah, and just get it out of that stoppage area.
Yeah.
There could at times, Kane, there could actually be 3 or 4 disposals before the actual clearance is actually awarded.
Yeah.
There could be a few of those little kicks or a few of those little handballs, and then all of a sudden a player then explodes and then gets it out. And then we're looking at everything that happens outside of that.
Righto. So back to Sydney.
Yeah. So just I'll get into them in a little bit more detail with what they're doing, but just a couple of teams just to watch for the next 5 weeks. Everyone keeps talking about these 8-point games and whatever. I just want to put 2 teams on the radar in St Kilda and Adelaide for the next 5 weeks that are dangerous and they should not be treated as look at the fixture. Yeah, they should win that. They should win that. So we keep on looking at this turnover. The Saints have the 4th best turnover game in the competition over the last 2 months of the season. So they are not a team. So Essendon this week, that is not a walk-up game where you're going to get the victory. I know that Geelong play them in the second last game. That's not a walk-up game where you're going to get the victory.
Yep.
I know Carlton play them in the last game of the year. That's not a walk-up victory. It's going to be a challenge. And Adelaide, we talked about what Adelaide are doing defensively, although that game was a bit of a shootout on the weekend. But defensively, they've got a lot of assets that are in play at the moment, and this is actually one of them in terms of how hard they are to actually score against off turnover. So they're going to be hard to beat. So if you're Hawthorn this week, and if you're the industry looking at this game, Hawthorn should beat Adelaide this week. No Dawson, no Rankin. You probably make a fair point, but don't be fooled at this is a dangerous game for Hawthorn.
Where did North fit in that discussion recently? Because if I'm seeing this game in Tassie against Geelong with Geelong's midfield and what North Melbourne have done from stoppage and scores from stoppage, I'm thinking, I reckon that probably falls in that category as well, Hoyne.
100%, because you look at what North's strengths are over the last 2 months of the season, it is contest and clearance. Respectfully, they haven't got too much else going for them. Their accuracy in front of goal is ridiculous at the moment, and that was there, on show again against Carlton on the weekend. But everyone knows that Geelong's weakness is contest and clearance. You would think if Geelong are able to break even in that aspect of the game, they'll control the game and they'll win the game. But it's a big if.
So you always talk a lot about the runway, the premiership runway.
1 week to go.
1 week to go before we enter it. At this stage, who's got the biggest issues of the top group?
If the top group, I think
sounds like Sydney.
No, I think they've all got. I think they've all got some concerns. I mean, I think they have. I think Sydney have got some concerns to work out from injuries, perspective, just like Carlton do. Brisbane defensively, Freo. I'll get into them shortly. I'll get into GWS later on.
All right.
Geelong, we saw that. I think that's just why it makes it a fascinating season. But the competition is tightening a lot more than what it was 2 months ago.
All right, Horny's here with a bang. 0433 1116 if you want to send through your thoughts as we get straight into his 7 main talking points. What's the new breeding ground?
Yeah, the more footy that we all watch, and you're just taking more in, and you're sort of, and you're just watching everything as it goes by. I'm just looking at this game. Is there a new breeding ground in terms of where you're actually going to get your next superstar midfielder from? And looking at what's happening across the competition at the moment, seems like the halfback flanker is that player where you could pull a lever to get a midfielder in if you're short in that area of the ground. So if you look across, and I've only got 10 names here, and Kane, you might be able to go a little bit deeper as well.
Because I'm so passionate about one name in this new breeding ground. Can I go Will Power from Gold Coast?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is why me and Kane are friends.
He is the next Will Day waiting to happen.
Oh, yes. That's why we're friends. I got him on the list as the next one to watch.
Have you got 100% Michaelaney on the list from Adelaide?
No, I haven't. I haven't got Max. Haven't got Max there.
Put him on your watch list as well. Give us your other 9.
So these are the 10 that have done it so far, right? So Dacos started it. Hayden Young, Sheasel, Rivers, Richards, Will Day. Heard Will Day with you, Kane, on Monday morning saying that he was a flanker. Now he's become a centre bounce player. Jordan Dawson did it.
Cherry did it.
Elliot Yeo did it at Brisbane. Jack Crisp did it at Brisbane and Collingwood. Flanders has done it a little bit differently. Now he's a permanent midfielder. And then I'm having a look at the next wave of as much. I love this guy just about more than anyone. Dan Houston would be interesting for me. So if people are thinking about, okay, you want to see a little bit more Rosie Ford or Horn Francis Ford, what does that do to the midfield group? Could this guy elevate that midfield group even further? I know Kingy's mentioned this bloke already before. Mitch Hinge, we've talked about him at length in terms of him being an underperformer. Can he be that player for Adelaide over the next 5 weeks, just like Hayden Young did at round 20 last year? Season's dead, we put him in, he's never going to go back. Could Mitch Hinge be that player for the next 5 weeks? Jordan Dawson's out this week. Could you see him actually come in and actually play that role? This, Carlton supporters, please don't shoot me with this. This is just a left field, and this is just a discussion. I'm not sure what's right or not. It's just a discussion. Adam Sard. What would Adam Sard do if he got thrown in at a centre bounce? I'll tell you what he would do. It wouldn't be a boring centre bounce.
Worth having a look at.
Something would happen. So, I think
they've done the reverse. Cheris played his first 2 seasons at Freo as a halfback, came to the Blues as a mid, and now they've put him back on the halfback.
And he finished as a midfielder, at times for Freo as well. So it'd be interesting to see what he does as a mid. But I'm just thinking, I'm not saying that's right or not, but what would that do to Carlton? It would cause chaos to the opposition. I've got no doubt about that. We've been at length about Wanganeen Malera. We saw that for the last quarter against West Coast on the weekend. Attended every single centre bounce. Brisbane don't need to do it at the moment. Darcy Wilmot, for me, is that player.
They've done the reverse, actually.
Who could go in there. He is a bit like Adam Sard in a way. When he gets it, just weird things happen, and I love weird.
You mentioned Rivers. Rivers?
Yeah, no, Rivers is in that mix now. So he started his career now.
It's only a matter of time before Wilmot goes in there, is it?
Powell, and then Will Powell, as you said, as well. And then potentially if you're GWS don't have a lot going right for him at the moment. Lockie Ash. Could Lockie Ash be that player with a bit of speed and a bit of point of difference to be able to throw in there and, just give something different to what, Tom Green actually possesses? So I'm not saying what's right or not, but there's a lot of players there that weren't necessarily drafted as midfielders that are now absolute bona fide, best midfielders in the competition. I mean, because you look ahead to prelim final, and that's sort of, all we're trying to do. And with all due respect, the midfielders are the ones that are going to win you a prelim. Like, Collingwood don't win the flag if Jordan De Goey doesn't do what he did prelim final night against GWS, where he was just absolutely phenomenal. Christian Petrarca, Dusty, Bond, Sam Walsh's final series last year. They probably don't get through 2 finals wins without Sam Walsh doing what he did.
That's why I think Cam Rayner is the wild card of this final series. For him to do what he's done at times this season and in the last 2 weeks, he's the one that could have a huge prelim final weekend. So I'll watch on that one as well. Hoyne, it's a great topic. I love it. Tell us who the best kicks inside 50 are.
Save this for you, Kane. You asked me this 2 weeks ago. I had it all ready to rock and roll, and then realised that you weren't on last week.
You don't waste your good stuff with Whitey. Let's be honest. Whitey's in. Save your good stuff for the next week.
So I've had to just put that on hold. Did the homework last week, and then the players changed this week. So anyway, that's okay.
If you do the best kicks inside 50, you've got to do the worst.
No, we've got to end some careers here. We got to do it both ways as well. So we'll just do the top 10 best kicks inside 50, and this is based on the degree of difficulty of the kick that you're trying to pull off, and how far above or below you actually pull it off. So Ed Richards is the best kick inside 50, and the best kick inside 50 by a fair way. Dan Houston is second, and then there's a significant gap between those two. So that's why I'm interested with what Dan Houston could do as a midfielder, Kane. get him up the ground and get him involved and actually, see him try and have 4 to 5 of these kicks.
He has done it, and there was always fights at Port Adelaide of who wanted him. The midfield coach wants him, the defensive coach wants him, and now I think when you go,
you sort out your coaches over there.
Well,
Kane,
when you go, we've got the 3 midfielders plus Wines and Drew, bit of Burgon on the wing, and now Mead playing. You go, we probably need him right now for what's best for the team across halfback. I think that's been the discussion. But who's third?
So Toby Green, number 3, Nick Martin, Bradley Hill, James Warple, Hayden Young, Elliot Yeo is a bit of a surprise, Liam Duggan and Cam Rayner. So they round out the top 10 best kicks going inside 50. Now on the negative, and
Gold Coast get a few reps.
No, Gold Coast get a couple of reps. 2 of their superstars get a couple of reps. So Matty Kennedy is unfortunately the worst kick of any player in the competition going inside 50. And now we get to some of the surprises. Caleb Sarong is the second worst kick going inside 50.
You surprised at that, though?
No. He does. His ball winning ability is up there with the best in the competition. His field kicking's actually okay. It's just anytime he gets forward of centre, it's just a bit of an issue. We talked about this guy 2 weeks ago. Noah Anderson's the third, and I couldn't help but just watching it on the week. I'm not sure if you saw that game as well, Kane. I'm sure you did, but just he had 2 kicks going inside 50 on the weekend with absolutely no pressure around him, and just complete shanks just going inside 50. Jack Crisp was a bit of a surprise for me. Sam Walsh.
Not so crisp.
No, Sam Walsh comes in as the 5th worst kick going inside 50.
Been an issue for him for a while, Sam Walsh.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. This one's a huge surprise this year, and it has been throughout the whole year. Jordan Dawson comes in as the 6th worst kick going inside 50. Matty Rowell is in that group. Jack Viney's in that group. Caldwell. And then to round it out is Darcy Wilmot. So it's an interesting mix. And then the other thing I just
why would you want to put Wilmot into the midfield if he shanks are going inside?
I think he can work. I think he can work with that.
Yeah, I understand that.
I think I could work with that. I think he's just every time he gets the footy, he just looks so excited just to do something. Which, as I said, I don't
It's interesting because the eye tells me that Wilmot's a really good kick, but that's why I trust the numbers.
He's a really good kick coming outside of defensive 50. So he's not a bad. I think he can work with that. I just wanted to put this on there. I just want to celebrate this. So I'm not sure whether or not you agree, Kane and G, that it is probably one of the hardest kicks to recognise is that kick going inside 50. 100%. Just want to just put these guys. These are the 5 guys who generate the easiest kicks going inside 50. It's a good list. Brian Myers just takes the easiest option of any player in the competition. Jason Horne-Francis takes the 2nd easiest option. Zach Butters takes the 3rd easiest option. Harry Sheasel takes the 4th easiest option. And Toby Green takes the 5th easiest option.
So that's a compliment.
Absolute compliment.
Don't try and do
100%.
too much.
Yeah, not miracles. Don't need to pull off anything ridiculous. Not trying to do the absolute Hail Mary. You're good footballers because you make the easy and the right decisions as opposed to trying to take on too much pressure, trying to pull off a kick inside 50, which is unrealistic. And Grind, Jason, Butters, Sheasel and Toby Green do that better than anyone else in the competition.
For those people out there thinking, well, what about just the long bombs? Are you counting those in, or
counting
the
long bombs
those
get counted. Yep. No, every kick going inside 50 gets counted.
And if the long bomb goes to a pack, is that a negative?
Depends depends what happens. If you win possession, it gets counted as a positive, and if you don't, well, then it gets counted as a negative.
All right, that was the best and worst kicks inside forward 50. Tell us what Hawthorn are doing well.
Well, they're doing a lot well. Clearly doing a lot well at the moment. Their midfield brigade, and we've been speaking about this for a lot of the season, has just been phenomenal. Again, that interview on Monday came with you and Bucks and Will Day. I found that really interesting. Him alluding to their ground ball work that Sam Mitchell wanted to focus in on, and clearly that is there for all to see at the moment. So over the last 6 weeks, there's no better team in the competition at winning a contested possession once it leaves clearance. And then on top of that, they've got the 2nd best clearance team in the comp. So they're getting it done in tight, and then they're getting it done better than anyone else outside. It's a pretty good starting point. Their ability to defend opposition ball movement is top 6 in the competition, both from defending it deep and then from defending it across that half-back area. So they've got both of that sort of areas covered. And as a result, they're only conceding 44 entries a game. They do give up scores quite easily once the ball gets in, but their ability to be able to restrict the opposition has been superb. And only once in best part of 3 months have they given up more than 53 entries per game, in a game, which is AFL average. So we all know that, right? I just want to put something on the table around that.
I like when you put stuff on the table, Hoyne.
And come with me on this. I'm not sure if you agree. They have a point of difference on the competition, which is bloody hard to stop.
Yeah.
And that's their ability to draw free kicks inside their forward 50 when opposition defenders are trying to tackle these little blokes inside the forward 50. So when you're trying to tackle a Hawthorn player inside forward 50, they've drawn a free kick 23 times this season. Miles ahead of the competition. To put that in comparison, Geelong have drawn 2 free kicks for the year. They've drawn 23. They've drawn 17 scores from this, almost double anyone else in the competition. The top 6 players in the comp for drawing a free kick like this, Hawthorn have 5 players.
So Watson,
Ginnivan, Bruce, Moore, McDonald. All of them.
Wow.
Fantastic.
All of them. And I can't help but watch it and just look for it on Sunday. When the ball is on the deck, I'm almost sitting back just waiting for a free kick here. And it's forward craft 101.
As Sam the Genius Mitchell, is he coaching them how not to give away...
how to draw it.
Yeah, how to draw it without sort of the umpire looking at saying, no, you're trying to draw a free kick here.
Nick Watson has drawn more in his first season, has drawn more free kicks this way than any other player in the competition.
Just got some free text coming through, Hoyne. You've been sucked into talking about umpires. Not something you do. You've been sucked into talking about umpires.
I'm talking about. I don't even know how to respond to that.
You've been caught out.
I am. I'm entering uncharted waters. But I just want to put that on the radar. That, if you're an opposition defensive group, this is something to be wary of.
Yeah.
You give away a free kick like this, more often than not, you're conceding a score to Hawthorn. So, as I said,
Ray's going to be onto this.
And it's all of them. As I said, they're miles clear of anyone else in the comp. You're Adelaide this week. I don't know, Kane, you'd be far better at this than me than, trying to scroll. I don't know what you do other than be wary about it. But, it is something that is real. It is something that is a point of difference.
Yep.
And we're always looking for something that's a point of difference.
So 23 free kicks. Who's next best?
The Dogs are 16, and then the next best is 13. So they're 10 clear of the third best team in the competition in this aspect of the game.
Free kick,
small numbers.
Free kick Hawthorn is back. Remember the free kick Hawthorn thing from about 15 years ago? It's back.
Yep.
All right, Hoyne,
Can I ask you about Meek before we leave
30 seconds. So
we'll go guess who.
Gets the clue for guess who.
We'll go guess who. So this player, last 6 weeks of the season, he is a top 20 player in the competition, and he currently plays for a bottom 3 team. So he either plays for Richmond, West Coast, or North Melbourne. He is a top 20 player. Last 6. It's not Harry Sheasel.
You love Sheasel. Top 20 player last 6 weeks, plays for a bottom 3 team. A lot of text coming through. The Nank, Tristan Cherry, Jaden Hunt, Dan Rioli, LDU, Mansell, Tim Taranto. Gerard, did you have a thought?
I was thinking Mansell.
Mansell. No, not Mansell. Not Mansell, but he's a teammate of Ryan Mansell.
Okay.
I thought Jeremy McGovern or Shea Bolton.
Oh, yeah. No, McGovern's going well. But this player is Daniel Rioli. So I thought his performance against Port Adelaide on the weekend was extraordinary to have, close to 30 touches, 10 intercepts, kick the 2 goals. And across the course of the season, he's rated as our 33rd best player. Last year, he was top 100 as well. The year before that, he was top 30.
Right.
The reason why I wanted to throw him up as a conversation is that we're going to get into the trade period soon over the next 2 to 3 months.
Never stops the trade period.
Yeah,
to me, the tax man.
Yeah, and we've had this discussion at times throughout the year. But the more you're watching this guy, the more I'm looking at it. Gold Coast have 3 first-round selections at the table, which includes an end of round 1. So that could be, pick 2025, whenever that, balloons out to. Now's the time, I would have thought, for Gold Coast to utilise, you're prepared to give up overs. It doesn't, draft picks don't matter, I don't think, anymore. I'm not sure what you think, Kane. I don't think they matter anymore for Gold Coast in terms of, where their list is at. Again, they were the youngest team in the competition on the weekend, but they clearly have and one major issue, and that is ball use across the ground and more so ball use going inside 50. Kane, you mentioned it before. We just alluded to it. Will Powell has the attributes, I would have thought, to become another centre bounce midfielder for Gold Coast, who is a really good distributor.
So you
if
need
Will
someone
Powell
that's
does
taking his
that,
spot.
this guy comes in to replace him. All of a sudden, the pieces for Gold Coast are not far away. And I don't know. I'm not sure what Richmond are going to be doing. If I'm Richmond and I'm looking at it going, well, this guy, I don't even know how old Daniel Rioli is. I probably should have checked that before coming on here. But if we're to get a pick 7 or a pick 8, so Gold Coast currently have their own first pick. They have the Dogs pick, so currently that's pick 10. Who knows where that balloons out to?
27 years.
27. Yeah, I would have thought if I'm Richmond, potential, like you're going to have to do something with this list. Do you look at it and to get these 2 early picks in with your own one in, sacrifice Rioli, and then for Gold Coast, I would have thought, I'm not sure, again, what you guys think, he would be a perfect fit for Gold Coast with how they play, with where their list is at, and with where their performance issues currently sit. He comes in as a top 25 kick in the competition to potentially fix and correct their glaring and
for
obvious.
Richmond.
Tiger supporters,
Do you
what
agree with
do
that,
you
Kane?
think?
Do you think it's perfect?
Well, I think it's a win-win for both of them. Like I think I like it more for Richmond than I do for Gold Coast. I mean, he's a nice player to have. I wouldn't be giving up a huge bounty for him, but to your point, Gold Coast is the right destination, right club to be trading with because the picks don't matter with the access that they've had to the academy players. And for Richmond, you're going, how can we get as many picks as we can in the first round in short time? And that is one way to do it. Baker's another way. And away you go on the rebuild that is a necessity and has been for some time. Tigers fans, 0433 98 11 16. Does Hoyne make sense? If there's any Gold Coast fans listening to us as well, does it make sense for you? Sounds like a win-win. What about the Bombers?
Yeah, so it's interesting to see where the Bombers are at and what they do now for the next 5 weeks. And clearly the narrative at the moment is around, what happened on Friday night and what potentially might happen for the rest of the year, and has anything actually changed? And sort of when you look at it now, with what they've produced in 2024 to what they produced in 2023, from a defensive profile perspective, not much has actually changed now. So slight improvements for themselves, but in terms of how they've improved, on the competition, there hasn't been too much of a gap. They've improved their overall points against from 89 to 86, which has gone from 15th to 13th. So a slight improvement in terms of where they sit across the competition. How they've conceded turnover, 51 points off turnover this year and last year, 14th and 14th. Their ability to be able to restrict the opposition when they actually go inside 50 and prevent that from becoming a score. They were 10th last year, so mid-table. This year they're 15th. So they've actually dropped away in that area. And then everyone keeps talking about how they defend ball movement. That has slightly improved for them. It's gone from defending it, 1 in 4 times last year to slightly above 1 in 4. So 1 in 5 times this year. So a slight improvement. But the issue at the moment is getting back to that defensive 50. So to go from being mid-table in terms of how hard you are to be scored against once you go in to the 4th easiest is mainly around how they're actually defending one-on-one contests. So in that D50 last year, they were the 8th hardest team to beat in a one-on-one contest. This year, they're the 4th easiest team to beat in a one-on-one contest.
So they've gone from 8th to 15th.
So I like what Brad and the coaches have tried to do this year in terms of not being a retreating defence and conceding entries, instead of being aggressive, push up, try and win the ball back more between the arcs and actually, limit the entries. So they've gone from being the third, from winning the opposition, from winning possession back in the middle of the arcs, the third least of any team in the competition, to this year doing it the third most. So they've become a more aggressive defensive team. But when the ball gets in there in terms of defending one-on-one contest, Ben Mackay, worse than the AFL average. Jake Kelly.
Hang on, what's he the worst at? Defending.
Worse than the AFL average. So defending one-on-one contests.
Really?
So not the worst player, but just that's where I'm just trying to look at this defensive, 6 or 7 and what they can actually do moving forward over the next 5 weeks to actually rectify this issue. Because as I said, they're defending differently, which I think is a positive. But in terms of overall outcome, the outcome hasn't changed as much as what we probably thought it was 4 to 5, 6 weeks ago.
Okie doke. So when it's a contest, we've got Ben Mackay's worse than the AFL average.
Yep.
Who else?
Jake Kelly is in that group. Laverde is in that
Gerard,
group.
let me ask you
as well.
because you are the captain of this ship. You have a university degree in sending forwards back.
Yep.
Can Peter Wright go back and do
No.
what Rory Lobb has done? Or is it worth trying?
It's too easy to say no straight off, but I don't think he's got the mobility of Lob. And the one thing you've got to be able to do is be able to move sideways. I've said this about Logan McDonald, but I just don't see Logan McDonald having the sideways movement. I hope they give it a try at some stage, but he's slowly improving as a contested mark forward. He took a couple on the weekend, but Logan McDonald has probably taken less than 5 contested marks for the year, Hoyne.
It might be a little bit more, but it wouldn't be too many more than that. The Peter Wright one's actually an interesting conversation.
Well, it's probably worth it. I mean, it is late and it is desperation, and the Western Bulldogs did it through absolute necessity, didn't they? Like they had to. I'm not sure, to answer my own question, whether he's enough of a competitor to do it. Now, I'm not. That's why I'm still not convinced on Lob. How much do you hate getting beaten? How much are you going to fight tooth and nail not to have a goal kicked on you? I haven't probably seen that in Peter Wright, but it's probably worth a crack at some point.
Are you surprised by the Ben McKay numbers, Kane?
Very, yeah. I thought because I thought that was his strength. Because if he's lost that, there's nothing else. Because he's horrible when he's trying to be in play.
Assertive.
Like if you're going to try and he doesn't know when to press. He doesn't. He gets completely lost, and then when he's handling the ball, he's giving it straight back to the opposition. Like, it's just unbelievable how that aspect of his game has been found out and exposed. So if he's not winning one-on-one contests and intercept marking, what else is he doing?
Yeah, so he's losing 1 in 3 contests. AFL average is 1 in 4 that you lose. They're big numbers when you're playing last line defence.
Yep.
You're losing a contest, more often than not, that's going to relate to a score for the opposition. So it's an interesting watch in terms of what they actually do and where this season actually goes. As I said, they've got St Kilda this week, which is a really challenging game, despite where St Kilda's ladder position actually is. So, it's just an interesting discussion overall with Essendon in terms of where they sit in terms of, from an improvement perspective and where they go moving
Righto,
forward.
Hoyne. Moving on, we've got Sydney and Fremantle to go. Let's begin with Fremantle.
So, Freo, profile is completely different to what we've seen over the last couple of years under Justin Longmuir. So, offensively at the moment, that is their strength. In terms of what they're doing with their offensive profile, it is the 5th best with the footy profile in the competition over the last 6 weeks. Their ability to be able to punish opposition off turnover is second to Brisbane. Between round 14 to 19 last year, to put to actually highlight the improvement, they were 18th. They had no punishment in their game last year. This year, they have it. The interesting aspect, before I get into the defensive side of things, is just their method, and I think the frustration that that I have with them, and I'm not too sure if anyone else actually has it with them as well, is just the inconsistencies in aggression with ball in hand. So on the weekend against Melbourne, and it's only one number, but it is a style number, they gained over 500 metres by hand. So to put that into context, AFL average is around about 250. So they were double the AFL average, and it was clearly their most in any game this season.
Who's number 1 in the league for that stat? Do you know?
GWS.
Okay.
Yeah, so GWS are up. So then...
I think they had 830 on the weekend.
Then the frustration with Fremantle is 10 days ago against Hawthorn, they gained 20 metres by hand.
When the game was there to be won.
And they go nowhere. And they have 41 entries. So, this team, when they release the shackles, they have so much weaponry to cause absolute chaos on the opposition ahead of the footy. They have not had an issue all year with connecting going inside 50. They have been top 6 all year. Their ability now to be able to punish opposition off turnover is up there with the best in the competition. It's just, I just need to see the consistency in aggression as opposed to what we saw against Melbourne, brilliant. What we saw 10 days ago against Hawthorn, don't really like it.
Well, they tried to chip kick their way through Hawthorn and slowly after three-quarter time.
And it's a bit of a credit to Hawthorn as well with what they're doing defensively in terms of defending ball movement. But they just didn't look like that there was any dare. I think you did that game.
Yeah, I did.
There's just no dare in what they did. But as you said to me at the start of the show, Kane, with where you sit with other teams. So offensively, they are strong. Just want to see more of it, more aggression, more consistent aggression. There is no easier team in the competition to move the ball against than Fremantle. And in terms of winning the ball back, why? Because between winning the ball back between the arcs, they do that the second least of any team in the comp. So is that going to stack up against Sydney, who move the ball brilliantly, Brisbane, who move the ball brilliantly, the Dogs, who can move the ball brilliantly? Is that going to stack up when you are the easiest team in the comp to move the ball against from one end of the ground to the other?
And why? What does your eye tell you why they're the easiest? Do they not press up high enough?
I think that there's a little bit of their midfielders actually getting left behind a little bit,
back.
And I think because they are such a dominant clearance team that you can automatically get ahead of the ball and charge out ahead of the ball a million miles an hour, because more often than not you're actually going to win that. But then once you lose that in your forward 50, you could get exposed going back the other way. So it is just a watch with Freo at the moment. They wouldn't want to have that profile heading in to September.
All right, a lot of text coming through just on your Richmond idea. I'm a Tigers fan. Big tick for Hoyne's idea to trade out Rioli, says Jack. Richmond man here, perfect for both sides, especially if we can get one of Freo's early picks as well, plus our late draft picks to Brisbane's first rounders since they want points. That says Jake from the Flinders Rangers in SA. A quick word on the Swans.
Yeah, so I don't want to get too technical here, but Sydney, with how they move the footy, they are a ball movement-based team. And they are a ball movement-based team by taking corridor, and they take corridor by changing angles and their short-kicking, uncontested marking game. They do not want to play a game which is straight line, long down the line footy. To me, the two best teams that have played that have played Sydney this year were Fremantle for the first three quarters and Brisbane on the weekend. So to put that into context, Sydney go long down the line around about 25% of the time, and they take corridor about 25% of the time. Brisbane forced them to go long down the line almost 50% of the time, and only allowed Sydney to use corridor 10% of the time. Fremantle, spitting image numbers. And why is that important? Because you defend and take off those 45 kicks and take off the corridor, it takes out their most damaging weapon, which is Errol Goulden. So Errol Goulden for the first three quarters against Fremantle, no one tagged him. He had 10 or 11 disposals. No one tagged Errol on Saturday, on Sunday
His
against
third
Brisbane.
quarter looked like he was going to destroy
He looked dangerous,
them,
didn't he?
In the third.
Yeah, no, he did.
Yeah.
He looked really dangerous. But overall, if you're Chris Fagan and the coaches, I'm sitting back looking at Errol's game as a whole going, nah, I'd take that. He still won 25 disposals, but didn't have the damaging impact. It takes out Chad Warner. It takes out Isaac Heaney. Without necessarily tagging these guys, the method of denying 45 kicks, short kicks and corridor and forcing Sydney to play straight line footy, that's what I think as an opposition team you need to do more moving forward. And if I'm the Swans, get prepared to be able to try and combat that method.